Okay, my name is Dr. Dominicus Zimanimoto Makukula. I am from the Department of Creative Arts in the College of Humanities at the University of Dar es Salaam. I have been there since 2006. You taught me during my bachelor degree program in fine and performing arts. I studied art in secondary school, but professionally I studied art at the Bagamoyo College of Arts. They had this 3 years diploma program in art. You know me because you recommended me to go there when it was hard for me to join them. My father never wanted me to do art. So you wrote to him and I went there, and today here I am. I am an art historian. I did my PhD in art history in Germany, and currently I am working with the University of Dar es Salaam as art lecturer, art educator. I am also art historian and art curator. You have seen my publications already, my paintings. I am diverse, as you have prepared us there. Today I'm visiting you for the purpose of talking with you, conversing with you on the origins of modern art in Tanzania. Yeah, this program is purposely for the documentation of East African modernisms, and on my part I am covering Tanzanian modernism, and all these materials are prepared to be stored or put for, appreciation of modern art practices in East Africa in the new East African Museum at Nairobi, East African Museum of Modern Art in Nairobi. Yeah. So today I've decided to visit you so that I can talk with you about these, stories, narratives of the origins of modern art in Tanzania. Please, karibu.
Thank you. My name is Elias Jengo. I am a retired associate professor from the University of Dar es Salaam, and I am now a freelance painting, writing as a retired man. After my retirement, I taught for over 10 years at the University of Dar es Salaam, first on contract and later on part-time basis. I'm now in my studio and I welcome you.
Thank you very much, sir.
To my studio.
Thank you.
And I'm very pleased that you have been able to come and discuss with me about art in Tanzania and East Africa as a whole.
Thank you very much. Yeah, even before we start talking about the, infancy stage of modern art in Tanzania, it would be very nice if we talk a little about, the visual art scene in Tanzania before the colonial times. Can you please?
Yes, whenever I talk or whenever I discuss art in Tanzania, I usually discuss it in 3 phases. The first phase is prehistoric art, and this phase is made up of rock art.
Okay.
And then we have pre-colonial and then colonial. I think there is post-colonial art also, which is at present.
Okay.
Now, about rock art, which I consider as the basis of all visual arts in Tanzania, because there is rock art in Iringa, there's rock art in some parts of Mbeya, there's rock art in Singida, in Mwanza, in Bukoba. There's rock art throughout the country. But the oldest art is Kondoa and Singida. And according to Professor Anati, Emmanuel Anati, this art is over 40,000 years old. And Tanzania should be proud because not very much has been written about our rock art. Yes, Professor Masao has written about it, and some other people, but the majority of people who have written about our rock art are expatriates or Western scholars.
From the fields of archaeology and history.
Right.
Yeah.
So Tanzania is very proud to be considered as not one of the oldest, but the oldest place where visual arts emerged. And it makes sense because Tanzania is the cradle of mankind. The first man came from Tanzania.
To have lived long in the world, he was discovered here.
It is natural.
Okay.
The first people to draw were in Tanzania. In France and Spain, Altamira Caves in Spain, and Lascaux in France. These two places are very popular, but they were not the first. Maybe in Europe, they were the first. But in the world, we know that Tanzania is the first country to produce art, which is still there.
Okay.
Which is still there on the walls of rocks. And I went there in 2003. I saw it with my own eyes. I was very excited.
That is pre-colonial.
This is prehistoric, which
art.
is also pre-colonial.
Yeah. Then comes the colonial time.
Colonial time, that is our art. The art that is trained in Tiro, Abdallah Farani, and many other people, you know.
Kiure Msangi
with me.
Elimon
Jau.
Fatma Abdallah. Abdallah Kasam.
Mohammed Kasam.
Yeah, Mohammed Kasam.
All these.
Yeah.
My art teachers, Tunginie.
Wazir Juma
was my student, my teacher at Tanga Secondary School. He taught me art for 2 years. After completing my career, he was posted to Tanga Secondary School. And I was very excited to see a person who had studied art at Makerere. I didn't know that there was art at Makerere. At the school, I was the winner of art prizes every year. We had a colonial headmaster who respected art, and we had yearly awards in many areas. And I always won the art award.
Yeah.
And maybe my secondary school teachers are not surprised at all that I took art as my life concern.
Yeah.
That's part of my life.
Very interesting to hear that.
So colonial period produced many good art teachers from Makerere, because all of us had to go to Makerere. That was the only university in Central and East Africa. And art was started by Margaret Trowell in 1937, even before agriculture, even before economics. No one knew about economics during that time. There was medicine, yes, and education. So during the colonial time, many teachers were produced from Makerere. When we got independence, during the post-colonial period, we had to start our own university to train artists and art teachers.
Here in Tanzania.
Here in Tanzania. And the current Department of Creative Arts was earlier known as Department of Art, Music and Theatre, and we trained artists as well as art teachers. But the first intake was made up former or people with teaching experience. There were 10 of them. And they graduated in 1978.
1978. Okay.
So the post-colonial period is very important in Tanzania in as far as art education is concerned. All important art teachers were trained during the colonial period. It is funny because in many schools during the colonial period, art was not taught in African schools. It was only taught in Asian and European schools. Still, in some secondary schools, there were expatriates who were very keen to see African artists. Pure the Moshi Tabora boys. In Tabora boys, Tabora Secondary School was founded on the grammar school model of England. And art was taught there. And after completing Makerere, my first appointment was Tabora High School to train students up to O level. So art was taught up to O level at Tabora High School. And I'm glad, I think one or two of my students went to Makerere. One of them became a member of parliament, Gideon Senyagwa, and another one, I don't know, he went to the army. I think he joined the army. After Makerere, he joined the army. Yes.
So that's briefly
that's briefly the three phases. Prehistoric, colonial,
and post-colonial. Yeah, so the post-colonial phase of art in Tanzania saw the inception of Butimba Teachers College with the art program. Then came the University of Dar es Salaam in 1975. Then came the Bagamoyo College of Art in 1981. Later on, we had the University of Dodoma with the Art and Media Department in 2008, right? Yeah, thank you very much.
And remember, during the post-colonial period, two movements emerged. Makonde Sculpture Movement and Tinga Tinga Painting School. These two leading movements of schools are still very active, and they are known all over the world.
They were born during the post-colonial
time. They are known all over the world. The Makonde crossed the river from Mozambique and came to Tanzania. Fortunately, the majority of Makondes who came to Tanzania were from one village. This village was in Cape Delgado
region, northern Mozambique.
They lived at a village called Miula. Miula was isolated. No Arabs could reach that place during the slave trade. Even Portuguese colonial soldiers feared to visit that village. So the village people had very unified cultural values. they really protected their values. And it was from that village where most of the Makonde carvers in Tanzania came from. They didn't come from Maputo, no. They came from Cabo Delgado.
The Mueda
Mueda,
plateaus.
you're right.
Yeah. Neighboring Mtwara region in southern Tanzania.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
And the question is, how about Newala and the Mtwara areas? These places belong to Makondes of Tanzania. Yes.
Yeah.
But these people lost their cultural values through Christianity and Islam.
Islamization. Yeah.
They were easily reached, converted to Christianity and Islam. And there was no carving. Carving were frowned upon by the missionaries. And I always argue that in Tanzania, before the arrival of missionaries, there was a sculpture. Very good sculpture tradition. And the German exhibition, the exhibition which produced that big book or catalog called Tanzania,
Yeah.
there's evidence that before the coming of missionaries, sculpture was very
Popular art in
yes,
Tanzania.
it was.
Yeah. The exhibition was mounted in the year 1904
1904
in Munich.
in Munich.
In Munich, yeah. And later on, they did a reenactment of the exhibition in 1994. Yeah. But several exhibitions were mounted on the arts in East Africa, and they, in many instances, they featured the Makonde art.
Right.
For example, in 1949, in the exhibition mounted by the Commonwealth in Britain, the only arts from East Africa mounted there were Makonde carvings.
Right.
Yeah, so what you say is very true. Yeah, so now we come to the modern art, Professor Jengo. First, how do you define modern art?
You know, as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
I prefer to call our art of our present time contemporary art.
Yeah.
Within contemporary art of Tanzania,
Yeah.
there are examples of modern art.
Okay.
Because to me, modern art is a kind of art that is produced by people who do not follow art rules or conventions.
Or principles. Yeah.
Art has its principles.
Yeah.
And during the Renaissance in Europe, those principles had to be religiously followed.
Yardsticks.
If you break them, you are not an artist. And we have so many good examples about this famous Italian artist, Caravaggio, who was told to paint a painting of Christ. I think there was a time he was also commissioned by the Pope to carve, not to carve, to paint,
The Sistine Chapel.
not to paint Saint Luke.
Saint Luke.
Saint
Caravaggio.
Luke writing the gospel.
Okay. The one painted the Sistine Chapel was Michelangelo.
Yeah, Michelangelo.
Yeah.
So his first painting was rejected by the church because there was a beautiful angel smiling at Luke writing the gospel. And people said, no, this is not for the church. He was breaking the conventions. Still, his painting had all the trappings of Renaissance art controlled by rules. So to me, whenever you talk about modernism, I'm thinking about people who know all the principles of art, but they break them intentionally. And we can't take Tinga as a modernist painter because his work is naive or something like that. Tinga is not modern art. It belongs to another category of art. So to me, I prefer to call art of our time, all over East Africa, or all over Africa for that matter, contemporary.
Where inside it you find modern art, examples
inside this
of modern
contemporary art, there's modern art and ordinary conventional art.
Okay.
But not traditional art.
Okay.
And there's another thing. In modern African art, the influence comes from traditional art. Traditional art has made a very big influence, very big impact on the minds of contemporary artists in Nigeria as well as in Tanzania. Sometimes I'm also affected by traditional art in some of my forms.
Okay.
And funny enough, the market for modern art in Africa is very high, because modern art is not realistic.
It's not
in my mind, it's not realistic like Renaissance art. Modern art is art that does not copy nature at all.
Not representational.
It is non-representational. But then, I also do not agree that non-representational art has images which we can understand. No. Non-representational art, abstract art, and representational art. We have three types. Representational art can tell us or can show us objects as they are.
Okay.
This is representational art. And then we have abstract art. Abstract art make some references to objects we know, but does not make any attempt to copy these images. That is abstract. Non-representational represents itself. When you go to places like Museum of Modern Art in America, find a huge canvas with a dot, with just a small X. So here's my painting. Oh, I don't see anything. Say, well, there's something. There's a dot there. That is non-representational art. It's a kind of art that presents itself. There is nothing you can refer to. You can't. There is no leg, there is no ear, there is no tree. To me, that is how I see these things. And many writers from America and Europe think that it is safer to talk about contemporary art
than modern art. Okay.
Because in many instances, within contemporary art, there is modern art.
Even the dictionary defines the two terms as one.
One, yes. Yeah. But in art, people make this distinction.
Yeah.
That the dictionary is right, but in art, we are talking about periods.
Time.
Art is controlled by time or periods. That when the rules were broken during the 19th century by many artists, and up to now rules are being broken by people who know something about art. These things don't come accidentally. You know all the principles of art, but you intentionally break them to create something new, to create your own identity.
Thank you very much. So that's what entails modern art. But
Modern
what in Tanzania, how do you consider the new art materials, new art techniques, new ways of presenting art that were coming with interactions in Tanzania since the early 1900s? For example, how do you consider the art that was produced in Tanzania after people located around this area interacting with their colleagues in many other parts of the continent? For example, when they met their fellow Africans through long distance trade, when they met others within this land, then Tanganyika, in the northern parts, southern parts, central, east, west, the art that was produced, for example, the stools from the three-legged stools from Unyamwezi were also replicated and produced here in parts of Dar es Salaam. They were also produced in Ukimbu around Singida. They were also spotted and produced in Dodoma and Iringa. Mkwawa had a stool such as that as is thrown. So we are wondering, do we consider that to be modern art? Because it was an art that was influenced by different factors, interactions, exchanges and stuff like that. Do we consider that art that was produced after Africans interacted in this area modern art? Because when you look at it, this art is very different to the rock art that you see in different sites. So do we consider the influences that have led to the production of the art we saw among Africans in the late 18th century and early and throughout 19th century as modern art within the continent?
Yes, you remind me of Nyamwezi fertility
doll,
fertility sticks.
Oh, then Tomo. Yeah.
Those
thin,
tall,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, then Tomo sticks.
I always argue that this is modern art from the Nyamwezi people. And this modern art influenced people like Brancusi in Europe.
Oh.
Brancusi has metal objects.
Sculptures.
And many art historians in America feel that this is the function of Nyamwezi art. Most of these Europeans have seen these sticks in museums, because Germany alone has about 10,000 art objects from Tanzania. This is the University of the Museum of Ethnological Museum of Berlin.
Yeah.
I'm told that there are about 10,000 objects.
Yeah.
And we had a seminar 3 weeks ago at the National Museum.
Yeah.
I was surprised you were not there.
Yeah, it was an arrangement that involved just some experts from the University of Dar es Salaam.
Right.
Yeah. So it was very interesting to see that you were participating in trying to understand these works of art. So now here I learned something here now, that you have categorized, in your opinion, you think the Ntomo sticks from the Wanyamwezi fit as modern art
that is
in Tanzania.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That fits my definition of modern art. Here is a Mnyamwezi, he knows the human figure, but he has broken all the rules and has put somebody.
Oh.
And I found these figures in the Bunge Dodoma.
Yeah.
And I asked the former speaker, Mr.
Job Ndugai.
Job Ndugai.
Yeah.
Ndugu Speaker, do you know this? He said, no. What are they? I said, you see, this thing has been here for all these years and you really don't care said, please tell me. I said, well, these are Nyamwezi fertility sticks. They are special. According to ethnology, this is not art. It's a ritual object. According to me, it is art. Its function is ritual. Because all art has function.
Yeah.
Or all art has social relevance.
Where they are produced.
It cannot be art if it has no social relevance.
Yeah. So modern art.
Even if it is a dot.
Yeah.
It must have a social relevance.
Where it is produced.
So the speaker was very happy.
Yeah.
And he told me, now I remember why the president of Ireland, when she was in the Bunge, she was looking at the paintings. I said, yes. And two of those big paintings were painted by me.
This is in the Tanzania parliament?
In the debating chamber.
Oh.
So
modern art in the parliament.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, yes, Tanzania has modern art.
Influenced.
Tanzania has also contemporary art, art of our time, which has nothing to do with rituals or spiritual
beliefs. Oh. So Tanzania has roots to its modern art. Modern art was also influenced by local roots in Tanzania. Oh, that's very good.
The modern art of Europe has been influenced by African art.
Yeah.
This is true. Everybody knows this. Modernism in Europe was engineered by artworks from Oceania and from Africa. People know this.
The British punitive expedition in 1897 at the Gulf of Guinea, but also the British invasion.
Punitive expedition.
Yeah, the punitive expedition was the second move towards discovering the arts there. Recently, Ghana is receiving a helmet, a gold helmet from England on loan basis. This is brought back to Ghana just for some time because it was taken there in 1893, I suppose. So several expeditions were done in the coast of West Africa and some other parts of Africa, including Kilwa. In Kilwa, it happened a bit earlier. It happened in 1509. It happened there, and there was some plundering and looting involved.
Yes.
Yeah. So the roots of modern art in Europe are linked to the art produced in Africa, free of the principles and the formats of art production. Because when you look at the rock arts in Tanzania, when you look at those rock arts, for example, this very, very old popular picture, it is titled Abduction. In this piece you see a group of men on one side wearing very realistic masks made of giraffe heads, very realistic. But when you look at the human figures, they are displayed in stick-like figures. So this artist is deliberately distorting the figure of the human while making it very perfect when drawing or painting the head of a giraffe. The same when you see in this big scene, it is discussed in Professor Fidelis Masao's PhD in 1975, when he was talking about, the subject matter of the works of art in Kondoa. He had this scene of the hunt. When you look at this painting, you clearly see antelopes in there, you see dogs there, you see everything realistically, but the human figure is deliberately made in stick-like figures. So these guys knew the principles, knew the anatomy, but they deliberately went against them.
Precisely.
So Picasso saw how these people in the Benin city and their bronze, sculptures, wood sculptures, and paintings, that they deliberately distorted the human figures, animal figures, particularly on the masks, because some figures, for example, look at those, figures of the kings on the brasses, on the iron brasses. You clearly see very realistic depictions. But when you go to the masks, you see the distortion. And the same characteristic is replicated in Picasso's works, particularly the Guernica.
Right.
Oh, thank you very much, Professor.
The Guernica and the women of Avignon.
The women of Avignon.
Mademoiselle de Avignon.
Yeah.
Those women or prostitutes have masks on their faces. And we know that Picasso was in that mood. Very strong influence from Africa.
Yeah.
From 1905 to 1907.
Yeah.
And then after that, he went to another phase. Influences of Iberian figures, short, stunted figures. These were influences. Now about rock art.
Yeah.
I also argue that the human figure was controlled. The drawings of human figure was controlled by the society. The artist was not free to depict human figures the way they look.
Realistically.
Because they were capable of painting giraffes with very good anatomy.
Yeah.
But when it came to human beings, only sketches, lines, matchstick figures. Why were they doing that? Well, we can go even to Egypt, ancient Egypt. Why are the people drawn in profile while the eye is on side view? The frontal, the eye is in frontal position, the head is in profile. Why were they doing that?
And one leg extended at the front.
The left leg is also advanced.
Yeah.
No, these are conventions dominated, they're controlled by the priests and the king himself. Egyptian art was static only for 10,000 years. Some people say that. It's not true. The meaning behind that is that the Egyptians, except for only one period, when a pharaoh called Akhenaton introduced a new religion in which people had to believe in one God. You see that, called Aton. And this one God was the sun. Art changed.
Completely.
Art completely changed.
In Egypt.
Egyptian art during that period changed. There was elongation of figures, exaggeration of forms. Even the pharaoh appeared elongated with hips and all that. That was the period of this. For 100 years. For 100 years, the paintings were like that. After his death, things went back to the traditional way of doing things.
Okay.
So, let us come back to Africa. Africa is now producing modern art as well as contemporary art. The dictionary tells you and me that these two terms
are similar.
They mean the same.
Yeah.
But in art, they don't.
Yeah.
Because of time or phases. We say that, yes, within the period when contemporary art is being produced, at the same time there is traditional art being produced. It hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
At the same time, there is modern art being produced. And not all contemporary art is modern. Within contemporary art, there is modern art. This is my stand.
Okay. Casfield, in a popular publication in 1999, Contemporary African Art, she dates the emergence of contemporary art in Africa and the world in 1950s. She counts it from there onwards. Similarly, when you read Okwi Enozo and his colleague Chika Okeke Agulu, you also see that they write a short century. You see, they write something that comes from 1960s, the independences of Africa onwards. That's when they talk about contemporary art. But they leave the phase or time before that as modern art. And Chika Okeke Agulu is very, very strong in that categorization, that she considers modern art to be before, the time when they wrote a short century. And he says that still some people are producing modern art within contemporary art phase. He says that too. So moving ahead, do you consider similarities and differences in the modern art practices in Uganda, Tanzania and Kenya as something unique?
Well, in Kenya I have I have a problem. I remember that in Kenya there was very strong emphasis on exhibiting art in very respectable galleries, art by self-taught artists, people who have never been to school. I remember Gallery Watatu,
Ruth Schaffner,
run by Ruth Schaffner and her friends. They wanted people who never went to college. They just didn't like people from universities to exhibit in their gallery. They wanted people from the villages to come and show their work. They gave them art to buy materials and everything. They gave them money in advance, and their work fetched very high prices. To them, that was true African art. Authentic African art is produced by people who have never been to school according to their thinking. And I strongly argue that there is no such thing as authentic African art. There's no such thing. African art is African art. There's no such thing as authentic African art. Art that is produced by people who have never been to school. No, this was a nasty way of classifying African art. In Nigeria, there was Ulibaya with his Oshogbo experiment. In Zimbabwe, at Salisbury Gallery, Frank McEwan. In Bulawayo, Kenan Patterson at Cyrene Art Center. In Makerere, there was Margaret Trowell. These people, and many others.
Pierre de Rhodes included.
Pierre de Rhodes.
At Poto.
At Poto. And there's another one in Elizabethville, which is now, there's a Frenchman who went there, a person from Belgium. These people feel that an African does not have to go to university to be a good artist. When I presented a proposal to Senate in 1974 to start the Department of Art, Music and Theatre. The person who opposed it was Jean Wickens, representative of the Chancellor, Mwalimu Nyerere. Jean Wickens was personal assistant to Mwalimu Nyerere, a British woman who refused, and the Senate was quiet. She said, no, let Africans do their own art. Once you bring art here, there will be Western influence. You are no longer going to produce African art.
That was her belief. So taking you back to...
And she was my student at Lumumba evening classes. Jean Wickens.
Doing art?
Yes, I taught her art evening classes at Lumumba.
How?
Evening classes, Institute of Adult Education. She was my student. Evening art twice a week.
That's very ironic.
Mm.
Yeah.
So some people refused. Said, no, where do we draw a line now? We have medicine, engineering, and all these things. Where do we place a true doctor? A true doctor must be from the village, not from Wimbledon.
Okay.
You see, people argued and some people left. I remember the late Professor Kanywanyi.
Professor Kanywanyi.
Oh,
yeah.
Kanywanyi supported us. Kanywanyi supported us. Said in the age of education for self-reliance, our students can't continue to go to Makerere. We must have our own establishment. We have engineering, agriculture. We don't have to go to Nairobi for engineering and all that. The Senate was quiet while Kanywanyi was... Anyway, the proposal was passed and Wickens was overlooked.
So the scene of art in Nairobi with that background was still also contemporary or modern. How do you categorize it? Because Schaffner's, stipulation that she entertains no trained artists in her gallery. Where does that leave the Kenyan art scene back then? Because when I consider her colleague Joanna Agte, who went there in the 1980s and wrote her book. The book is written in German.
Art in East Africa.
Yeah, Art in East Africa. That was Doroth von de Miller in 1975. But this is Joanna Agte. She writes a book in German title Wegzeichen. But in the introduction, which is also in German, she is talking of zeitgenössische Kunst. In Germany, that means contemporary art. Zeitgenössische Kunst, contemporary art. So she also uses the same names, works of art and artists to categorize them as both modern artists and contemporary artists in Kenya. And the same artists you find in Ruth Schaffner's records. Artists such as Jack Katarikawe. I know he has this, double citizenships. He originates in Uganda, I suppose, Jack Katarikawe.
Well, he was a Ugandan taxi driver living in Nairobi.
Yeah.
He became a very good artist, according to Schaffner.
And Agte. Yeah.
He died a miserable man because of many reasons.
Yeah. Oswago also. Oswago. Several others. So in Kenya they had modern art. In Uganda, where you studied your diploma in art and education, the scene was also modern art. We have talked about Tanzania. So how different and how similar were the East African modernism scene?
I must admit, art or artists influence other artists. Western artists influenced African artists.
Yeah.
Traditional African artists influenced European artists.
Yeah, so the exchange is quite...
You see that?
Yeah.
It is normal. It is normal in this world of travel, books, and radio, it's normal for influences to go beyond your borders. So in Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya, modernism was born when there was this cash economy. There were people who were ready to buy art. And many artists tried to paint what the market wanted. Up to now. There is a guy there at Makerere School of Fine Art, Margaret Trowell School of Fine Art. He has a diploma in bookkeeping. He's called to see him, I think. His patrons are in California. He makes a lot of money by creating artworks. All these people have 3 fingers. And his American patrons like that kind of art. They buy it. They sell it in California. This is authentic African art.
For them.
They want to view an African as a fool, or sometimes an African who can think properly. I went to Germany in Dortmund, 1987, I think. I went with the Makonde covers, and some young students from university thought that most of these people were not thinking properly. You see that.
They were young.
They were young,
Yeah.
inexperienced. Think that most of these Africans are fools.
I think now they might have quite a different opinion when they go back to the same works of art.
Right.
Yes. So,
But
Professor.
many collectors make a fortune
Yeah.
in rural Germany and Europe, selling artworks from Tinga. This is typical African art. This is an African's paint. You see that?
Yeah.
It's not a special movement, but it's generally, this is work of art from Africa.
Yeah.
And that is very misleading.
Yeah.
And there are people in Tanzania who think that Tinga painting should be accorded the respect as national art of Tanzania, something that I refused. Even the national art shop had to change the name.
Handiko,
To
from
Handiko.
National Art of Tanzania
To Handiko. And I was a board member. I protested. I protested to the Indian expert who came to introduce Handiko.
Yeah.
It was NAT when Pira's shop was nationalized.
Yeah.
They opened up national arts, and I
Tanzania.
protested.
Yeah.
I protested. And I had my voice, and the name was changed to Handiko. And there was a board member. I was also a chairman of a subcommittee responsible for finding out why some shops in highly touristic areas were falling apart.
Oh. That brings me to my last question. How is Tanzanian modern art promoted since its inception?
Tanzania modern art or contemporary art
Yeah.
is promoted by many institutions.
Yeah.
We have private galleries, we have members of the diplomatic corps who are very supportive.
Yeah.
I remember the Swiss embassy, there was a time, up to now, they're supporting art by giving funds. These are grants to artists with the projects. They have that. I applied, I couldn't get anything because I wanted them to support me to write a book. They say literature can be supported, but I'm sure they wanted stories about African life or something. I wanted them to support me to write a book on contemporary Tanzanian arts. I didn't get anything. But young people like Chachag and all that got some grant.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tanzania art is supported by many institutions, and I'm a member, founder member of Nafasi Art Space, which was earlier supported by Denmark. It is now wholly supported by us, not by the government. It's a private organization. We have donors from Europe supporting art in Tanzania.
And some local sponsors also,
Yes.
banks,
Yes.
and some companies.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So contemporary art is fully supported in Tanzania, and some artists are coming up. People like Kibwana, people
Masoud
like
Kibwana,
Masoud Kibwana, people like Minzi.
Tobias Malcolm Minzi, Vita Malulu.
Yes.
Yeah.
My organization,
Yeah.
East Africa Art Biennale, has supported these people for 19 years, producing catalogs.
Yeah.
The catalogs are all over the world.
The East African Art Biennale
Yes.
catalog.
I have catalogs here.
Yeah.
And I'm getting old. I wanted you to take over. But there is a young woman who is not
Up to the task. Thank you for the honor, Professor. I will participate. Yep. Yeah.
I would like you to take it very seriously.
Thank you, sir.
I'm getting old.
Yeah.
I couldn't stage the Biennale last year.
Yeah.
It was the 20th anniversary. We couldn't do anything because the director told me that she was revamping the organization
Okay.
to suit the instructions of Tanzania Revenue Authority,
Okay.
because we had problems getting artworks from abroad and returning them. See, we had problems. We had to use Nafasi to help us because they're registered and they pay tax.
Yeah.
So I would like you seriously to take over.
There are exceptions. I think that can be done. Tantrade, they have.
You can bring people,
Yeah.
start afresh.
I think there is a possibility of making it better. Thank you very much, Professor, for this very wonderful interview.
Thank you.
I hope we will continue doing interviews in a
Thank
few
you.
days to come.
Please come again. I like issues of art in Tanzania
Yeah.
to be discussed openly, and we want our colleagues outside the country to know that we have thinkers who care about their art.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir.